It's a podcast.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Aaron, aka StudMuffin Supreme, and welcome to the debut episode of my very own solo podcast outing that I'd like to call And Now It's Your Podcast. That's right, we're here and we're going to do this. And just for the record, I'm also involved with a podcast project with my brother and my buddy Mike. It's called the Rated R Wrestling Podcast, tailor-made for anyone who's interested in the pro wrestling industry from a fan's point of view. Unapologetic and uncensored. Wanted to plug that in there. If you want to go to the YouTube, like I said, Rated R Wrestling Podcast, you can check out there if what you're interested in is pro wrestling. This one, however, being my own solo thing, I didn't want to just solely focus on pro wrestling. That's why I did the project with my brother and my friend. Because I wanted to do my own solo thing. And here's the thing, I was kind of like figuring out, what am I going to talk about? I'm kind of wrapping my mind, what's my niche going to be? And here's the thing, there is no niche. There will be no niche here, because that is my niche. There is no niche. Don't play a drinking game every time you say the word niche. Jeez. No. So basically, I'm just going to talk about whatever I want to on here. You'll get to know a little bit more about me. If you're following me from TikTok, which I'm hoping most of you are, this is a good opportunity for you to get to know more about myself, okay? I'm going to talk about a lot of things. Anime, movies, Star Wars, just naming off some things because I'm a big geek at heart. And I'll talk a lot. Hell, I'll even talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! I love Yu-Gi-Oh! And we'll probably talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! a lot, actually. I don't know. I'm not playing this stuff. Like I said, no niche. But just in the instance of fairness, I will usually give a buffer, maybe in the title or before the episode starts, of what I'll be discussing. So it'll give you kind of an opportunity, if I don't like or am interested in what he's saying, I don't have to listen. Or if you want to listen to something, maybe you've never heard anything about it and you're open-minded and you just want to hear me run my gums about it, that's perfectly fine. And if you're interested in it, and you like me already, just come on in and we'll talk about it. Okay. There could be a possibility that I'll have somebody else join me on here. Occasionally I have a guest on here, but this is pretty much going to be a solo issue podcast here. So I was trying to figure out what I'm going to talk about today. I was thinking about perhaps doing an introductory episode, kind of going over where I've come from on this online social media stuff, where I started out at YouTube many years ago. But I decided there's a chance that some of you already know about some of my history. You may not know all of it, but you're aware that I was on YouTube. I've been on TikTok since 2018. I didn't really want to go through that again, but I did want to do something that I figured is a good chance that probably all of you don't know, and that is this. I was in a rock band. Now, let me preface by saying that we were never signed. We never made it big. We were kind of the shits at sometimes, mostly because of me. I'll explain. But we recorded songs. We had full songs we recorded, and we played a concert, a gig. We played a gig. So that counts, I feel like, that I was actually officially in a band. But shit, I was in this band from, it's about a 3 or 4 year run. So, and I didn't have anything written down here, so I'm just kind of just going off my memory here. But I'm just assuring you, this is from my point of view. I'm telling you, this is how it went. Okay, and I'm not trying to bullshit anybody here, but this is what we're trying to. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. This is from my perspective. Other people might see certain things other way, but I'm just here telling you what's from my heart and what's from my memory. So here we go. I don't want to waste any more time. But yes, I was in a garage band. Okay, it basically started. I'm pretty sure it was in the end of, was it junior year? No, actually, take that back. It started in 06, 07-ish. I'm trying to remember exactly. It's been so long. I wish I could have had a lot of the stuff written down. Point is, freshman year, I believe it was, hanging out with a buddy of mine named Wes who played guitar. And I always loved Wes. I thought he played great guitar. He was a metal shred master, okay? And the summer of '07, we hung out a little bit with him at his house, and he would play his guitar and stuff. And a buddy of mine named Bobby, who was in our friend group, played guitar too. And then a new friend of mine who I just reconnected with, Matt, he played guitar. He rode the bus that I rode on in the afternoons. So I was starting to get around people playing guitar, and I had just really started getting into hard rock and metal, so being in a band was always something that I kind of tickled with in my mind that I wanted to do. And at the time that all this started kind of rolling, Wesley was already had his own band going. And all this kind of culminated to the end of freshman year, where I was starting to get into more of the ideas of songwriting. Like, I didn't have an instrument, so I was like, okay, I'll just write lyrics. My buddy Bobby, like I mentioned before, he was kind of floating the idea around of, hey, I'll play guitar, we can form a band, you can do the lyrics, you can sing, or whatever you want to do. We'll get the ball rolling on this. And so the ideas were starting to formulate a little bit. At the same time, Wes was talking to me about his band, and he was actually looking for a co-vocalist and a potential co-lyricist. And I was actually interested in it. We talked about it, and I officially joined Wes's band. I'm trying to remember what the band was called. It may not even have had a name. But I officially joined it as a co-vocalist and a co-lyricist. Wesley was the main vocalist. He was also the main lyricist. I was just sort of as a backup, basically, just to get my foot in the door as far as being in a band goes. And because of that, like I said, I reconnected with my buddy Matt, who was his other guitar player. And we started kind of talking more. And over that summer, we started hanging out more and jamming. It was eventually decided that I was going to play bass. I didn't have a bass. And because I didn't have a job and I was, not from the most wealthy family, it was only guaranteed that I could get something like that for Christmas. And it had been discussed, and around Christmas and my birthday, which is December 14th, so it's all together, I was going to get a bass guitar. So that was coming. I was going to eventually do that, and then just learn on my feet and play bass in a band. I've never played bass guitar, but I'm just going to start from scratch, So things start rolling. We're writing lyrics to songs, not fully songs yet. And then we're starting to do more times where we're hanging out. And Wes introduces me to the guy who he's wanted to be a drummer for his band. His name is Kyle. Kyle was like a grade or two below us. And Kyle was going to, be the drummer for the band. So we hung out with him a little bit, got to know him. I think maybe once or twice. And then sophomore year started. And at the very beginning of that, everything was still doing what it was doing. Sorry. So sophomore year started. And right out of the gate, we were just like, okay, this is what we're doing. We added another drummer by the name of Ryan, and we added another bass player by the name of Richie. And Richie had actually been playing bass, so he actually had a bass. I had not had one yet, and he actually knew how to play it. So we had a conglomeration here. This was like a Slipknot level of memberhood. We had like at least 8 or 9 people. I'm thinking. So you had 2 drummers, 2 basses, 2 guitarists. That's 6 people already. Then you had a keyboardist, and then 7, 8. Yeah, it was. You could tell that. I was naive to how this all works, so I didn't realize just how much of overkill this was going to be. So, also at the same time, during that summer, I was hanging out with a girl named Julia. Julia was a girl that I was smitten with. I had a crush on, I liked, but I became really good friends with her. She's a pretty rad person. She was awesome. Somehow we got into this discussion of her being in our band, and she agreed to it. The only caveat was that her and Wesley, they had, I assume, dated. I think that's what it was, but they didn't really end their dating on the best of terms, so they didn't really care for each other too much. So she was not really thrilled about being in a band with him, and I think the feeling might have been mutual. Just forgive me, this has been so long ago. So eventually it got to a point where Julia's like, well, maybe we all can't coexist. And because I liked hanging out with her more than Wesley, if I'm being honest, at the time, a lot of that had to do, being smitten, I'm young and dumb. Her, myself, Matt, and Kyle, we decided, why don't us four just be a band? We don't have to worry about all these other people, because there were still issues of, is everybody going to be together, or how are we going to meet? Alec, a buddy of ours, he was in and out of whether he wanted to do anything. And then Bobby kind of lost interest. So we're like, okay. So literally, in the sophomore year started, like a week later, we decided, okay, we're just going to do the four of us. Julia, myself, Kyle, and Matt. And we'll just be our own band, okay? And we named our band DDP. Now, when I say we, I mean me, because one of the other things that I did, I named the bands that I was in. Bands, plural, yes, I'll get to that here shortly. But I decided to come up with a name for this band, and really because we were just getting off of the rush of Pirates of the Caribbean 3. Me and Julie were into pirates, so I suggested the name DDP, Drunken Disorderly Pirates. That was going to be the name of our band, okay? And everybody, I guess, agreed to it, and we had one or two hangouts where we got together, we're writing lyrics. Matt had his guitar, Kyle had his drum set. We jammed just a little bit and wrote lyrics. We never actually sang anything. I actually sung bits of these songs that Matt and I would write. I wrote lyrics to like songs that I wrote called Without Scarlet Wings or Hellbound Horseman, and Matt wrote the guitar part and I would sing and he'd play the guitar part. But we never really got a full-fledged song together. And I guess Julia was going to be a vocalist or a keyboard player. I don't remember exactly, but that was kind of her role. And like I said, we had a couple of these sessions. But then there was another guitar player at our school. His name was Storm. That was legit. That's his name, Storm. His first legal name. And he knew Matt. He knew Julia. In fact, I think they were on the cusp of dating or something. I don't know. They were close. And he legit, at that time, was like, I've never seen a guy play guitar like him. He was, like, incredible. And the idea floated around of having him join the band. I was all for that, because I'm like, this dude is, like, the best guitar player I've ever seen. Yes, I want him in our band. And he said, yeah, he would. And I think him and Julia kind of technically dated around that point, too. And so there we had our band. And then I don't think... I'm trying to remember, did we end up bringing Alec into the fold? He was going to be a keyboard player. We were at his house for these practices. So that's where we would go. So Alec was sort of a satellite member, basically. He was pretty much a satellite member for all the bands that he was in with me. Again, bands. I'll explain that shortly, too. But unfortunately, this thing wasn't going to have a run that I was going to hope for. And this is where things started going downhill. My fault, right? Okay. We're just gearing for this. Mind you, we haven't come up with a full song yet. We're having these practices, but they're basically just hangout sessions where Matt jams on his guitar, Kyle plays on his drum pad, and I write lyrics to songs, okay? At this time, like I said, we had started our sophomore year. And because we were a band now, it kind of opened the door. Other people knew that we were doing it. And somehow at the same time, we started learning more about the other bands. Like, there were other bands in our high school. And one of them went by the name of Evolution of the Static. And they were mostly comprised of like juniors and seniors ahead of us. Mostly seniors. There was the drummer of that band. His name was Steve. He was actually in our grade. And I bring Steve up because him and Julie actually had dated before. And Steve and I never really got along. Like, I never understood why. He kind of bullied me in 8th grade a little bit. Yeah, I'm the fat kid, so you're going to mess with me. He hawked a loogie in my jacket one time, and I put my jacket on, and it was gross, blah, blah, blah. But because of that, I didn't really care for him. And even more so when I found out that him and Julia had dated. So, being immature and naive, I kind of already had a bad disposition about him. So I kind of didn't really want to like Evolution of the Static just because of association with him, okay? So they had a MySpace, they had songs up, and to be honest with you, I dug their music. They were kind of emo-ish, metal, kind of rock. They were okay, and but I never admitted to it. And this all led to a night at Alex. We were in his computer room, Matt and I. We had set up our MySpace page for our band, I think. Or did we? We were trying to build one, I remember. But I was on what was the prototype for our band's, I guess, MySpace, which MySpace was the thing back then. Julia was always the one that was using those free background customization codes. You could copy the coding and put it in your About Me, and it could really customize your MySpace page. She was kind of like a whiz at that. I learned a lot from her from that, and she kind of did that for us. Anywho's, we were all hanging out doing one of these band meetings or get-togethers, and Matt and I just went into the other room. This was Alex's computer room, which was down the hall, and we were on the computer on the MySpace looking around. And then me and Matt started, because Matt didn't really care for the Evolution of the Stack either. He didn't really like Stevie anyway. And we were joking around, and it kind of got to the point where I was like, trying to remember which one of us said it. But a consensus came up to us like, why don't we send a message just shit-talking these guys and trash-talking them? Now, like I said, I don't remember exactly from who first this idea generated, but I will know 100% and take full 100% responsibility that I'm the one that decided to ultimately do it. So I sent out this message. I messaged the band directly themselves on their MySpace page, and I wish I could remember word for word, but I basically called them out saying they were posers, their music sucked, we were better. Granted, we didn't have music, so what the hell was I thinking doing that? And then I just sent a message saying they were dumb, pretty much. Now, in a bubble, one would think, okay, that's not too terrible. I mean, you're just talking shit. Here's where I made the big mistake. I talked all that crap in that message, and then I put in regards or from myself. I put my name down. I put Matt's name down. I put every other member of our band down. I put Storm down, his name down. I put Julia's name down, Kyle's name down, and then I think I put Alex's name down. Julia and Storm were associates and were friends with some of the members of Evolution of the Static, and they're like fans and associates. So you can imagine, after I sent that, we'd go back to school following that weekend, and the shit hit the fan. Julia came up to me and was furious with me. She said, "Aaron, what did you do?" Because I got everybody over here on my case upset because we started talking shit about them, and you used our names. You know, once she ascertained that I admitted that I'm the one that sent the message, she was upset that I included everybody's name because it was only my opinions. It was my opinion only, and I threw them under the bus for that. So she was very upset. She was, threatening, "Oh, we're not going to be friends anymore. We gotta. This is not going to work. I want out of the band." And I was desperate because I didn't want to lose her as a friend, and I didn't want the band to be over. So I remember going and I found the hangout spot for the band and then their friends, and I went there by myself and was like, "Listen, you guys want to beat me up, that's fine." I was expecting to get jumped. I mean, I'm stupid now to think of that, but I was like, if you're gonna be mad at somebody, be mad at me. I said, I'm the only one that did the message. I was stupid. I put everybody's name down. Don't be mad at them, be mad at me. And then they were kind of like, "Oh, whatever." They said I was stupid and I was dumb for doing that, but blah blah blah. And so I reached out to Julia again because we wrote notes to each other and passed them around. I said, "Listen, I smoothed it over. We're good." But she responded back. Basically, it didn't matter. She was pretty much wrote me off. She was mad, and she was justified for doing that because I was stupid. But she said she was out of the band. Storm was out of the band, and pretty much she didn't want anything to do with me. We ended up reconnecting as friends down the road, but it was never the same again. So, yeah, that was pretty much the end of that. Storm was gone without even playing, and then Julia was gone too. So where do we go from here? So what do? We have to pretty much start over. It was kind of a blow to me because not only did I lose a friendship with Julia, I was smitten with her, so that kind of killed everything. Like, there's no way now, right? But looking back, I was immature and dumb, and I ruined a good friendship. I really did, because she was genuinely a really cool friend. And so we had to move on, basically. We dabbled a little bit. It was just myself, Kyle, and Matt. Basically, we rebranded to a 3-person band called Grinder, I think. Yeah, I think that's what we called it. Did we call it? Was it Grinder? That was the name of the song. The demo song we wrote. I came up with so many different names, and we changed our names so many different times because I wanted to change the name. It ended up becoming a running joke. So we do that for a while. And mind you, while Kyle, Matt, and myself were doing this 3-person band, we technically were in another band with Bobby still. So, again, these situations where I'm in like multiple bands, we're not even really writing songs, so realistically this is just asinine, okay? And eventually we get another singer. It was another girl that I ended up being smitten with. See a pattern here, right? Her name was Rachel. She decided she was going to join the band, okay? And because she joined the band, she ended up being, I guess, dating too. She ended up getting associated with Storm again, and because of that, Storm decided to join our band again. And this time, we actually got further than we did before with him because he actually came to a practice with us and was going over lyrics and playing songs and melodies off his guitar. So we actually did get a little further with that. And Granted, we only had like the one big get together where we were going over band stuff before the inevitable happened. This kind of situation imploded too. So, because of the whole situation where I was talking shit about Evolution of the Static and ended up killing drunken disorderly pirates, we ended up kind of getting a stigma put on us by the guys that hung around Evolution of the Static. These were a group of guys that were like their friends. They were associates of the guys that were in the band, so they knew of them and were friends with them. So they now had carte blanche to hate on us. And like I said, probably deservedly so, because what I did was stupid. They like just being stupid jerks that we walk in the hallway at school and they would just throw insults at us under their breath, condescending remarks, and call us posers, and said we sucked, which, technically we did, right? Because we didn't really have a freaking song. But it kind of all boiled ahead a little bit. We were going to do a Battle of the Bands. That was brought up by our school, and at this time we had Evolution of the Static still. They were still the big band from our high school, but you had a couple other bands that were around too. The other most notable one was another group called Skyburns Red, which we were not necessarily enemies with. There was some members in that band that we were, cool with. They were cool to us. They never really gave us a hard time or anything. So at least for me, I was cool with them. Didn't have a problem with them. But these two bands were going to be in this Battle of the Bands, right? And I decided to enter our band into the Battle of Bands, even though we didn't have a song. We didn't have one song. So we were like rushing to have these practices to come up with anything, and it got to the point where we realized we are not going to have anything for this show. Okay? Now, at the same time, whether it be a bolt from frickin' beyond, right? There was a teacher that we called Mr. V. His real name was Van Valkenburg. And we were doing a skit for like our local school testing. We did these little silly videos, and he decided to be a part of to sponsor, I guess, our group's video, and he was going to be in it. And one of the people in it was our drummer, Kyle. Now, we were filming the skit for our video, and that entailed Kyle to be chucked off the stage in our auditorium. Well, Mr. V kind of threw him a little too hard, and Kyle was it fractured? He did something to where he royally screwed his wrist up, and they had to cast it. And I'm lucky. I'm glad Mr. V never got in trouble with it. I don't think nothing ever really came out of it. I think Kyle played it off as an accident. I mean, which it was, but it was never anything on Mr. V. Point is, Kyle couldn't play drums. I mean, technically he could, but it was not. It was not going to work. I mean, it was going to completely hinder his playing, and it kind of was like a blessing in disguise, because it's like something is telling us that we're not supposed to play this Battle of the Bands, and this was a stupid idea. So we dropped out of it. Of course, word got around that we dropped out of it. So that even led to more of these guys ripping on us, saying, "Oh, you guys are really posers. You guys are stupid posers because you're chicken, you're backing out." We had a legit reason. Okay? But the kicker is, we decided we were going to go to the Battle of the Bands anyway and be in the audience. Now, for whatever reason, the word had gotten out that they were going to, some of their fans were going to threaten to kick our asses and fight us if they saw us at this Battle of the Bands. And we still said we were going to go anyway. And the more the threats kind of seemed like they were true, the more I got worried about Rachel. And she was like, "Yeah, I'll go. I'm not afraid. I'll go with you guys." And I'm like, listen, you stay with us if something was to go down. Like, this is how serious and stupid this was. We were afraid we were going to get into a fight. A freaking fight over nothing, right? And so the choir teacher, I think she was the one that was organizing the Battle of the Bands. When she was starting the show, she did bring up, she goes, well, we do have one less band now because they backed out at the last minute. And of course, we got jeers, and the people that knew we were there, they were like, oh, boo, they suck, all that stuff. And it was so stupid, and I felt so bad because Storm was generally friends with a lot of these guys, and they were ripping on him for being in a band with us. They're like, why are you in the band with these losers? Like, this is stupid, right? And after all of that, because I guess of the seriousness and the pressure of all that, it started to kind of wind things down and wear down on Rachel a little bit and Storm. Storm eventually was just like, this ain't for me. Either he couldn't commit to the time, which is probably one of the reasons, and the other reason, of course, obviously was because of the drama. So he, for the last time, left. But he had his cousin, I forgot what his cousin's named Jake. His cousin was also a guitar player. He came in and for a brief cup of coffee, joined the band. And then we had another guy, a guitar player, come in by the name of Billy Cracchioli. I think that's what his name was. Believe it or not, that's what his name was. He played with us for a cup of coffee. Mind you, these were like practices. These weren't shows or anything. We hadn't got to that yet. And then this is another one of my dumb decisions. Okay. So there was like I told you, Sky Burns Red. Sky Burns Red, their guitar player was a guy by the name of Adam. Now, Adam was dating a girl that was in our class her name was Cody. And I'm trying to remember who initiated the talks, but it was discussed that Cody would play the synthesizer keyboard with us, and it was agreed to. Now, me being overly ambitious and an instance I should have just put the frickin' brakes on and not go too far, I was like, okay, she's in the band, so I took a picture of her, and I posted it on our band's MySpace page under our member board, because I would do pictures of our members, and I put her picture on there. Mind you, we haven't had a full-on conversation yet about anything about this band. All I'm going by is the word of, yeah, she's interested, she'll do it. Two big problems came out of that. The first one was her boyfriend Adam, who was in Sky Burns Red, who we were okay with, messages me and probably the polite way says, get her the hell off that page. I don't want her in this band. I don't want her associated with you guys whatsoever. So as soon as she was in, she was out. And during that, Rachel made it known to us that she did not like Cody. They did not get along. And she would not be in a band with her. Well, I remember telling her, well, she's not in it anymore. But because I made that bonehead decision, because apparently I thought I was the manager, which I wasn't, I made the bonehead decision to do all this. Rachel, she just said, you know what, I'm out. And she left. So here we go again. You see a pattern. I'm self-admitting this. I was probably the biggest problem to why our bands always had these issues and this drama. Because I learned the lesson. Don't really be in a band with somebody that you like smitten-wise. Because it complicates things and overcomplicates things, okay? So after she left, we were without a singer again. We ended up getting a guy by the name of Lunchbox. That was his name, Lunchbox. His real name was Nick. He decided to sing, be our vocalist. This was also around the time we had Storm's cousin and Billy. They were in our band. And that incarnation didn't really last long either. And Billy he just wasn't vibing it at all. He wasn't really into it. We had like a one practice or two, and it never worked. Okay, and eventually we moved on from those guys. And the core of all of this has always still been myself, Kyle, and Matt. Alec in and out every once in a while. And then we delve. What was the word I'm looking for? Delve. We wanted to try something different. And Kyle knew another guy named Kyle who was in his graduating class. He was a guy by the name of Kyle Whitty. He was a rapper, and the idea came up to do rap metal. Yeah. We actually had a phone conversation. I had like an hour-long phone call with Kyle and Kyle. We were talking about the what we were going to do. It'd be like kind of like Linkin Park-ish, and Bobby was back in the band as a guitar player. Matt was in it, and we had like one or two get-togethers where we ultimately ended up just filming video skits, which that's something I should also mention too. In the later part of our band, togetherness, most of the time band practices were just basically skit sessions where we would film us doing stupid stuff. So that never worked out, obviously. So that faded out real quick. Now, we still have the core three, myself, Kyle, and Matt. We always kind of had like that band in the background just in case whatever flavor of the week we were wanting to do didn't work. We can always fall back on that. So, like I said, the rap rock or whatever thing wasn't going to work. It was just starting to become like a revolving, rotating door of just lineup changes and stuff like that. We got a guy named Jordan. He was like a grade or two above us. He was actually kind of associates with the guys that used to pick on us, but we decided to bring him in anyway. We had created a band called Clock Strike Zero. This was like a new band. It was going to be him, myself, Matt, a guy named Andrew Rosano. He was going to play guitar. He never made it to, actually, now that I think about it, I think Jordan was the only one that ever came to like a practice one time. We didn't really do anything. The notable thing we did with that band was we filmed. We took photos of ourselves. We did like a mini photo shoot of us in Kyle's barn, and someone had the great idea of, hey, let's take gasoline in the middle of this old wooden dry barn, and we'll make a circle of gasoline, set it on fire, and then we'll all take turns standing in the middle of the circle, and we'll take pictures. Andrew was there for that one. I stand corrected. And we did those. Kyle got in trouble by his aunt, who found out about it, and that band never performed together or practiced together again. Another one and done, right? Well, we still kept on with the Clock Strike Zero name. It was just, like I said, myself, Kyle, Matt. Bobby again came back into the fold. We went to by the name of the Buzzkill Tragedy, which I thought was a pretty dope name. We went to the name Down from the Sky, which was taken from a Trivium song. I was changing the name all the time. We went to the name As Tomorrow Ends. That was officially our last band name. And we decided that we were going to do our first gig. Yeah, we were actually going to do our first gig. My folks at the time, we had a annual Halloween party where we did like a haunted trail, haunted hayride, and my mother actually suggested, she goes, why don't you guys your band, play at the party. And Kyle was all down for it because he's like, it's actually a gig. We're going to do something. And we actually knew songs. We covered the Black Sabbath song Paranoid. We knew half of Iron Man. And we had our own original instrumental composition called The Storm. So we had enough to do a little small 10-minute set. And we did it. We played it at my family's Halloween party, and there was an audience of maybe 9 or 10 people, and most of them didn't like metal music. We had our buddy Gabe there, who was our biggest fan. He loved it. My buddy Mike, who's on the wrestling podcast I do, he was in the audience for that. And we felt like we were on top of the world. I wish we had filmed it. I wish we had pictures and filmed it. But it was the peak. I sang and played bass guitar. Kyle played drums. Matt and Bobby played guitar. And we were the name As Tomorrow Ends. That was the new name that we went by. And Bobby left the band, I think. Either that or he was fixing to quit. And in 2010, this is where we end the story. 2010, something happened to where we couldn't practice at Kyle's garage anymore, which Kyle's garage is where we always practice. It was the only place we could go because that's where he had his drum set, and it was pretty much stationary. And his grandmother, who he lived with, decided she didn't want any more band practices in the garage anymore. So because of that, we're all I guess we just got to call. Well, we didn't officially end it. We were just we're just going to have to put everything on hiatus. Maybe we'll come back to it. And we didn't. About a year later, we hadn't fully ended it yet, and I decided to sell my bass. I sold my bass guitar because at this point we were just it's never going to happen, and it never did. That was it. It was fait accompli. And looking back on it now, I'm sorry if I bored everybody to death, but this is just something I always wanted to share with everybody about myself. It's something I got to say I did. I played a gig, as even though it was a family gathering, it was still a gig. And sometimes I wish I could get back into the band thing. I bought a bass a few years later to get back into it, and then never got a band together, and couldn't reunite the band now. Technically, Matt and I could get together because Matt still's playing guitar and stuff. Bobby and Kyle are no longer in the picture. They're not going to divulge into why that is, but it's physically impossible now. They're no longer in the vicinity. So, yep, that band will never be back together. But, hey, things happen for a reason. But I don't want to bore you guys anymore. If you've been here, I hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit about my past. That's how I wanted to start this whole thing off. So, yes, I was in a rock band. I was the downfall for a lot of the incarnations of the rock bands that I was in. I learned so much that I actually wanted to do a memoir or some sort of tell-all entitled How to Not Have a Successful Garage Band. Because in the process of trying to have a successful one, I learned all the ways of not having a successful one. So I learned something, right? So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. This has been And Now It's a Podcast. I'm StudMuffin Supreme. Thanks for watching.